All right, everybody, welcome to day 2 of the Train the Trainer session. I just want to make sure that our presenter is here and available. You guys here?
Hey, this is Gerald. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. All right, so thanks. I'm Dallas Carla with RMS PMO. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be here yesterday, but introduce y'all back to the presenter Gerald for Train the Trainer session 2 today. Note that we have a Q&A section that you can always put in comments. The more questions and comments that you have, the more in depth we'll be able to go and be able to provide more information for you guys. So feel free to ask those questions. Also know that we'll have different times that we're going to be able to stop for some of those questions. And then also that this training and many other trainings are also on our RMS YouTube channel. So feel free to stop by there to get some additional references or otherwise. So with that being said, I'll pass it off to Gerald, and thanks for attending.
All right, copy that. Thanks, Dallas, for the intro. My name is Gerald McCoy. As Dallas said, I'll be your instructor for the Train the Trainer virtual session, day number 2. I'll just go over a couple of housekeeping things. The RMS staff will be monitoring the chat, so if you have a question, please go ahead and type it in the chat. You don't have to wait until the question and answer period. However, at the end of each section, you will be given an opportunity to verbally ask your question. You'll just need to unmute yourself to ask the question, and then we'll go ahead and tackle it and unpack it at that point in time. As Dallas also mentioned, in about 5 business days, the recording will be posted and available. So just make sure that you check our website for that. So, many of you guys have gone to the website before, so you guys know where that is. That's obviously rmsusa.army.mil. So the website is available for you here. If you haven't already, you can go to the website and download the slides for the Train the Trainer course as well. And in addition, you can also check out our videos, as Dallas mentioned. All right. If you have any questions which are outside of the scope of this training, we will note them and try to answer them after the core content is completed. However, if they need to be, we will definitely forward them over to our support team, where you'll be able to get some additional answers to those questions. This particular training does not include guidance on business processes or policies or regulations that govern your particular district's way of doing business. However, we will try to keep things general in the presentation so that you can utilize RMS to fit your district's particular needs. To ensure that we mitigate any audio issues, since we did have some audio issues before, I will try to do an audio test before each of the sections. So just go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you can hear me in the chat, just to make sure that my audio is still working. Also, if I'm going too fast or too slow, there's like a little turtle and also a little bunny in the chat as well, in the icon. So you can go ahead, if I'm going too fast, hit that little turtle button. That'll signal me to slow down. If I'm going too slow, hit that little rabbit button, and that'll speed me up a little bit. I'll go ahead and talk a little bit faster. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and jump into our second part of the Train the Trainer section as well, which is our Billy Baker already wants me to go fast. Now he wants me to slow down. All right, Billy, I see you. All right, so we're hitting up creating our custom reports and queries. So essentially, you've already gone through and you've entered all of your data into RMS, but once you or your users have entered that data into RMS, it's no good unless it can be pulled out again and used in a meaningful way. So reporting allows you to be able to discover and interpret and communicate meaningful data by examining patterns found in that data that you've entered. The custom reporting tool lets you create reports using the data that suits your particular needs. With the Tellerant custom reporting tool, you can configure all the settings, including which data source to use, which fields and filters to include, and when and how often to run the report as well, and the delivery format that you choose. You can access the custom reports from the district library. So you can click on the district library menu option at the top. Once you click on that, it'll take you to that district library menu, and then the custom reports module can be found in the second column at the top. Once you click on that, you'll be taken to the custom reports data grid, and you can view all of the data grid elements within there. You can view the report author, report type, and which menu the report will be included on. So a list of all the predefined reports will be displayed on that data grid as well. Sometimes you may want to generate custom queries for a particular district report in order to aggregate data, that is combining data from multiple sources, processing the data for new insights, and presenting that data, that aggregate data, in a summary view. And that's where query definitions come in. The query definitions can also be found in the district library menu as well, and you can use them in your reports. You can do that through the query definitions section as well. The query definitions section allows you to create those custom aggregate queries at the district level. However, even though the query is created at the district level, you can still add constraints so that the data can be filtered at the contract level as well. If creating reports from scratch is not your thing, you can also enjoy the RMS Asset Store, where you can find resources such as reports, queries, templates, and contract groups from other districts. So if you want to leverage the work that your other compatriots have already created, you can go ahead and basically go in and capitalize on the work that they've already done. To get to the RMS Asset Store, you will navigate to the System Library menu option and click on the RMS Asset Store. Once selected, the Asset Store will go ahead and bring you to the data grid, and the data grid will list all of the available Asset Store options that are there for you, all the different reports. The blue tiles at the top provide a total number of reports that are available in each of the reporting groups. You can go through, look at the asset type, look at the title, and see if it matches something that you're trying to accomplish. All right, well, it's time for us to jump right on into the demo, and we'll be going through our custom reports demo. Let me go ahead and pull up RMS. And 1 second while I get everything up. Okay, here you go. RMS is up and running. All right, so within RMS, once you have selected your particular contract and you know what data that you want to grab, the next thing is trying to figure out which fields you want to grab from that data. So today we're going to use our request for information in order to utilize the fields from that. You'll be presented with your screen overall, and we have a quick little shortcut that you can use in order to get the data elements that you want to utilize for the screen. If you go ahead and hold down Control and then press the right click, I'll go ahead and do that right now. You'll see a little overlay will pop up over your data elements. It'll tell you the data source, and then it will also tell you the field information that you'll be able to utilize within your particular reports. For our example today, we're going to utilize the date submitted field, the RFI no field, number field, and then the RFI subject field. But we have some other fields that we can also choose from as well if we want to go a little bit more in depth. Once we know which fields that we want, we can go ahead and write those down, as well as our RFI KTR, and jot those down so that we can use them a little bit later. Let's go ahead and close this, and then we're going to head over to our district library and then to our custom reports area. All right, and once we're in our custom reporting area, we can go ahead and click Add to generate and create our new custom report. All right, once we've created our new custom report, we have several fields to fill out. A couple of them are filled out for you automatically. However, we're going to go ahead and edit a few of them to make sure that we have the proper data and the proper title for our report. So the first thing that we're going to take a look at is the overall title of the report. Our report defaulted title comes to Report 85. That was just the next number in the section. But for us, we're going to add a little append to that as well. And we're going to call it Train the Trainer Q301. So since this is our first report, we're actually going to do 2 reports. I just call this one 01, just to signify the first report. The next type is the author. So who's going to be creating the report? I'll just leave it with me. It populated it to me by default. I'll just go ahead and leave that there. The next thing on the list is the report type. It's a drop-down box, and we can either choose contract or district. If we choose contract, the actual report will appear in our contract list. If we choose district, then it will appear in our summary reports list. So keep that in mind when we are preparing the reports. For us, the first report we're going to choose is contract, so we're going to go ahead and choose that right now. The next one is our report menu. If we click on that, that's also a drop down, and essentially that'll tell us where in our menu option that particular report will go. So it's going to show up in the contract menu list for reports, but then which grouping is it going to be under? So we want to go ahead and choose that. We're going to choose the default administration, but if you want to, you can choose submittals, schedules, closeout, depending on where you want that particular report to be located. And then we're going to go ahead and add our title. I'm sorry, Dallas, did you have a question?
No, but like on.
All right, copy that. All right, so we'll go ahead and enter.
I'm sorry, I was having a disconnection here, so I didn't hear some of that.
Oh, was I disconnecting?
It was saying it was having connection issues, so. But it might not be. It might have been just me. Not sure.
Okay. Was anyone else getting disconnections? Did you want me to repeat?
I heard you just fine.
Okay, copy that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Okay, we'll continue to move forward. So next on the list is the report description. So we're going to go ahead and type our test report for our sample description. These little middle elements, we'll go over these not today because we have an upcoming training. We'll address this upcoming training later. For now, we're just going to select no for those. And then right here's our required collections. And this is where we can choose our collection. So for us, we can go ahead and choose add. And if we choose add, we'll be presented with our overall collection. Now, before we actually chose the RFI KTR collection, and that's the one we're actually going to be choosing for this example. But you'll notice if you jump back up to the top for report type and choose district, this collection changes once again to queries. So it actually changes to our district query selection as well. So depending on which one of these report types you choose, it will alter the required collections that you have available for selection. So I'm going to go back and choose contract. I'm going to then select my table that I want, which is our RFI KTR. All right, so if you remember, that was the table that we pulled from our RFI KTR when we did our control right click. That showed us our table, and it also showed us the fields that we're going to utilize within our report. Next is our report designer contract ID. We can go ahead and click on this, and that will allow us to select a contract ID to utilize in our report for our sample data. So in essence, if we don't select one, obviously we won't have any sample data to use. But if we're running contract reports anyway, the default is for you to select one. So you'll get a message that'll pop up that'll tell you to select one of these or select an example contract. So we're going to use our example contract here. The next field is our RMS custom collections field, and this is a custom field that you can utilize. Right now, it's only set for contract status funded and unfunded changes. Later on, we might populate these with several other items, but for right now, that's the only one that's in there. We won't be selecting that right now, though. All right, back up to the top. We also have our record GUID, and our record GUID is how the file will actually be generated locally. So these files are actually copied down locally. You're editing them locally, and then when you close them, it goes back and saves it into the database. A message will pop up allowing you to save into the database. We also have some checkboxes. One is under construction. This basically gives a status of your report. So if anyone goes in and is looking at the report you created, it will show them that your report is under construction. You can also choose whether or not to show the actual report in government mode or in contractor mode, or both. So in this essence, the report that we're currently creating will only be visible to the government users. However, if we want to make this available to contractor users, we can select this checkbox and it will be made available to contractor users as well. Going down to the bottom, we're going to skip this button right now. That's to launch us into the developer report designer. But we're going to just jump down and talk about copy report template from an RMS Center report. So the RMS Center has created several reports that you can basically choose from. And if you want to copy one of those templates, you can go ahead and do so from this button here. When you press this particular button, it'll go ahead and select all of the reports that are currently available that you can copy from. And essentially, it's going to bring in that report, but it's not going to bring in any of the data elements. So you'll have to go through and add your data elements. The same thing for copy report template from an end user report. This will go ahead and essentially list all of the end user reports, and you'll choose a particular end user report that will be brought in. And once that end user report is brought in, you can go ahead and utilize that in your overall report. I'm not going to choose that right now, so I'm going to press cancel. All right, and then the only button to talk about is our Launch Telerik Report Designer, and that does exactly what it says. It's going to launch our Telerik Report Designer, and we're going to do that right now. So we're going to go ahead and launch that. It's going to launch. Basically, it's going to, right now it's asking me if I want to override a template because I had another template already up. And now it's going to open the report. It actually opened it on my other. So as soon as it loads, I'm going to pull it up to my top screen so that you guys can all take a look. And then we'll navigate through and talk about each of the different elements. All right, it's done loading. Let me pull it up here and let me go ahead and enlarge it. And let's go ahead and drag this out a little bit so we can get some more real estate. Okay, so this is the report designer that will pop up. As you notice, we have several sections available to us. We also have several tabs at the top that we can take a look at as well. We have our file name here, and then we have our big designer space in here. So we'll tackle each one of these in turn. We'll start off at the top and then make our way around. So first at the top, you'll notice we have our home section. This lists our preview area. We can also choose our clipboard, where we can do cut, copy, and paste. And then we have our formatting elements, where we can format different sections within our report designer in our report space as well. And then we have our layout grid, where we can, if we click on something, our layout grid is enabled, and we can then start to control our layout. And then our borders and our different styles, we're able to control from there as well. The first button here, which is the preview or view, if we click on that, that will preview our report for us, so we can go through and start to preview the report as a whole. Right now, we haven't hooked anything up, so obviously there's nothing really to see except for the default template that RMS starts you off with. So we're currently in portrait mode right now. Once you go back, we can go ahead and click on the next tab over, and that's our insert. That allows us to insert several different objects, tables, charts, maps, reports, and report items as well. We can insert those into our overall report. Just by clicking anywhere on our report, we can go ahead and choose the template, and then we can choose what we want to insert, whether or not we can just insert a table right from the get-go, or if we want to do the table wizard. You can also choose to insert a cross tab, and the same thing with the list. Creating charts, same thing. You can click on it, and then you can choose what type of chart you want to add to your report as well. The next element is the data tab, and the data tab you pretty much won't have to mess with. We currently inject your data into the report, so you're not really creating data on the fly here. The data is coming from RMS, and it's basically being injected. So for the most part, you'll skip this particular tab. We also have our view section. So if you want to basically control the views that you see over here, we can go ahead and hit these, and that will control our views and show us what views that are available on the screen. We then have our text box tools, which we can then use to control all of our text box information. We can add a little bit extra formatting to our text box, and then we can also control the expressions. I'll show you a couple of different ways we can do that as well. And then lastly, we have our table tools. If we insert new tables, we can go through and insert a row for that table, insert columns, and we can delete those particular columns and rows as well. And then we can also manage the cells within our overall report. We also have our groupings, which we won't be going over too much in this training. This training is just covering kind of the basics. Grouping is a little bit more advanced, so we won't touch on that right now. And then obviously we have our totals and our summations that we can utilize and insert into our report. Moving over to the right, we have our Data Explorer. And essentially our Data Explorer will list our data sources that are available to us. We have our data source that we selected, which is our RFI data source that's available to us. But you'll notice there's no button here that actually lists all of the fields that are available. That's because the customized data source that we have only shows our elements from our default data source, which is our RMS contract. It'll only show that one with the listing of fields. And all the other ones that we add, it will not show. There are a couple of ways around it. We have a couple of videos that show you that, but today I'm just going to show you one way to access the data, and that's basically to know the actual fields that you want to access within those data elements. That's our RMS data source. Moving down, we have our properties section. In our properties section, this just gives you a more detailed view of each one of the objects that are available. So if we select a particular object, you'll notice that the properties will actually change to reflect that particular object's details. So we'll have the appearance, the behavior, the data. If we choose another object, then we'll see each one of those change as well. It'll tell us our value, our name of the actual object, and then the design elements as well. So each one of those lists there for that particular object. We then have some customized objects, as you can see from these little mini reports here. We can click on one of those, and that will show us our page header section. And then click on the next one, that'll show us our detail section. And click on the next one, that'll show us our page footer section as well. So each one of those corresponds to a particular section on the report that we're able to edit. Overall, when you look at the report itself, you'll notice that there's sections based on the report. If you right-click on the main gray area, you will have control over those elements. You have control over the page header, the page footer, the report header, the report footer, and then you can also choose to add a new group, and then you can also control styles or reset styles, as well as formatting, setting formatting, or page settings that are available to you as well. All right, and that should pretty much cover all the basics of the overall layout view and the designer. So there's also some elements down here which shows you the viewage, so you can show your actual designer at 150% view. I'll leave it at 100 for right now. And then you also have your option, which is show snap grid. Each one of these items down here actually has a hover over so that you can see your tooltip. That is a summary of the information and kind of gives you a little hint as to what it does. So if you're unsure, you can just mouse over them and then it'll give you a little tooltip to show you what it actually does. We won't cover the Group Explorer. This is a little bit more advanced, so we'll just leave that for another time when we go into a more in-depth viewpoint of the entire Telerik Report Designer. For right now, though, we'll go through and we'll start to populate our report. First thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and change our report title here. So we'll give it a report. We just double click on it and then we start to type. Okay, and that goes ahead and allows us to type in the report. Another way to have done it would have been to right click on it and then come down here to expression. And then we could have gone in here and then typed our report in here. And then once we're done with that, we click OK. And then that also gives us our information there as well. All right. All right. So, and if we view this particular report, we'll see that our report is actually showing our new title. But you know, that's not all we want. We want to actually grab some data. So one of the things that we're going to try to take a look at right now is actually pushing forth some additional info. So first thing we want to take a look at is our contract ID. All I did was I came over here to our data source area, selected the contract, RMS contract, and essentially went in and typed contract ID. And that will get me as close as it can to the contract ID. Now with the contract ID, I can select it and drag it over, and it'll create a new field element, and then essentially allow me to drag that field element wherever I need it to go on the screen. If we right click on this and then choose expression, we'll notice that the field element is basically a keyword syntax that we can type in as well. So this # fields.rms contract ID, we can also type in. So we're going to go ahead, and in our case, I'm just going to copy it. And then I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to choose this text box here, right click and choose expressions. And I'm just going to go ahead and paste it in. But either way will work fine. You can either drag it over or you can type in. As long as you get the syntax correct, you should be good to go. We'll go ahead and preview this. And now it's showing our contract ID. So now we're starting to get some data. All right, the next element that we want to do is I probably want to go ahead and select the contract delivery. I want to see a little bit of the contract delivery. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on that and then choose expression. Paste in the contract delivery information. And then let's go ahead and preview the report. And I got my contract delivery. So you can pretty much do that to your data to get your data filled into the report overall. The next element that we want to take a look at, though, is populating our RFI data source. And we want to fill our detail section, which is right here as well, with our RFI data source. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to grab the table information. But from a quick glance, it doesn't look like you can grab any table information. The first thing that you'll have to do is click on any of the fields, and you'll notice another box starts to appear around all of the information. And where we want to click within that section is this little box right up here. And that will go ahead and bring us to our table. So that shows us our table information. Once we bring up our table, we want to go down to the data section, and we want to go to bindings, because we actually have to bind our data element to that table so that it will cycle through all of our data. Once we open the bindings information, we'll click on new, and then we can go ahead and select the property path. And the property path that we want to choose is called data source. We're going to choose data source, and then the expression we want is basically from the drop down. We're going to choose the drop down, and then we're going to choose fields.rfiktr from the actual data source that we populated earlier. Once that's all done, we're going to click OK. And now that essentially binded our data source to our table. So our table is now bound to the data source that we created earlier. If we want to go ahead and take a look, we can go ahead and select preview, and it'll start to show us all of our information. But as you can see, it's not showing us our actual detailed data, our field data from the data source. So that's our next step, is to go through and assign our field data. Now, as mentioned before, this particular data source, there's no drop down, so you can't just drag in the information. You actually have to know the field information, but it's a pretty simple syntax, so we're just going to go ahead and type that in. It's going to be expression, and then essentially we're going to go ahead and choose our expression information. And our expression information, we're just going to go ahead and type in here. And the same thing is going to be fields.data, fields.date_submitted. And the date_submitted, this section here, is what we retrieved from that control right click on the RFI screen when we took a look at it earlier. So we're going to go ahead and choose OK. Now we have our date submitted field in there. We're going to do that for our next two fields. We're going to go ahead and insert our RFI no field as well. And with that, I can just double click on it and then paste it in. And then we're going to do the same thing to our RFI subject. Double click on it, paste it in. Now we can go ahead and preview our report. And now our report is showing up. So we've got all the data, but if we look at it, our data is currently showing one big, long, continuous feed. So for most of the time, we don't want to see that. We want to kind of see it broken up into a proper table structure or proper page structure. So we want to go ahead and click first off on this little button right here, which is called Print Preview. When we click on that, it'll break it up into essentially a more viewable element that we can control. So, and this is pretty much what we're used to when we're seeing reports. We want to see it separated by page view, and so this is what it'll give us. But as you see, our header information is only showing up on one page, and it's not showing up on all the other pages. So we'll fix that right now. We're going to jump back over to the design view, and we're going to go back to our table view, because that's a table element. We're going to click on that little area there. It's going to bring up our table. We're going to scroll down to our layout, which is right here, and we're going to choose column headers, print on every page. That's defaulted to false, but we want that set to true. All right, that's set to true. Now we're going to go ahead and hit our preview again. And now we've got our preview, we've got our headers set up on each page. So now we're good. We're going to switch back over to design, and let's go ahead and make some alterations to our headers. We're going to call that one date. We're going to call this RFI no. And then we're going to call this one subject. Now, real quickly, just make sure one of the gotchas on this screen is that most people think that they have to click on, like, let's say doing a shift click to actually select these elements. All you really have to do is click, hold down, and then drag over the elements if you want to multiple select any elements. So in this case, I want to multiple select this top row, and I want to apply a style change over all of these elements that I've selected, and we're going to do a left justify, and we'll basically left justify our information. And then if we want to go ahead and basically close in some of these space, because there's a lot of space, we want to do that by clicking on the gray area at the top. That will allow us the ability to be able to bring in each one of our widths so that our width is a little bit closer to what we want it to be. You'll also notice that when I'm adjusting the width, the other side width on the end field also pulls over. So we just want to make sure to adjust that so it's touching our border area as well. If we go ahead and preview that, we can start to see that it's coming together a little bit. But we want to make one additional alteration. Let's say we want to do formatting on our date. So we can right click, come down to format for our date, and then we can choose a particular format for our date. We want to choose our date time, and we'll choose the simple date format. Choose OK, and then we'll click preview. And now our date information is coming together. So it's looking good. All right. So next thing we want to take a look at, though, is we want to look at some of the other functions behind the scenes. So if we right click and go down to expression, we can see that there's some other functions and functionality down in the main area as well. We have operators, we have global objects, and we have functions that we can take a look at. We have aggregate functions. If we click on this, we'll see all the aggregate functions. If we have conversions, we can see our conversion functions. Reporting, we have reporting functions page, and we have text functions as well. So we can go through and choose our text functions that we want to use. Before I show you one of the functions, though, I want to go through and I want to do a quick conditional format. Let's say we're looking for a particular text that we want it to stand out. Let's go ahead and choose our subject field. we'll go down to conditional formatting, and we're going to create a new rule for our conditional formatting. And the rule that we want to create is essentially going to look at the RFI subject field. And then we're going to check to see if anywhere inside it, it has the word sign. And then we essentially want to make sure a style change occurs. So we're just going to do something simple and change the color. Scroll down to a color, choose orange. That's a nice bright color. Choose OK. And so if we find sign anywhere within RFI subject, we'll go ahead and change the color. Now, some of you guys might be familiar with this. If you utilize Excel, it's almost the same syntax as Excel uses. So you should be able to utilize this in your reports as well. So we'll go ahead and choose preview. And now anywhere where sign occurs, it'll go through and highlight those particular fields for us as well. Let's go ahead and take that one step further. And let's say we want to go ahead and select expression. We want to choose our function, and we want to choose a text function. In this case, I want to choose a substring function. Our substring function is explained for us here. If we mouse over it, it shows us all of our information there. We also see the text in here as well. So we can go through and see the examples that it can give to us, and then we can utilize that to actually create our own substring function as well. So that's what we're going to do for this section. We're going to utilize that to create our own substring function. All right, let me go ahead and pull up my substring. And I think what we'll do is we'll set it up for 5. So we'll only choose the first 5. All right, and right now it's displaying for us the whole field. So everything in the field will be displayed, but now we're going to change that to be our substring. So we're just using our substring function, which is taken from here. And then we put in our text information, which is our RFI subject. We put in our starting index, which is 0. And we put in our length, which is 5. So we want the first 5 characters of the RFI subject field. We'll choose OK. Then we'll hit preview. Now it's only showing us the first 5 characters of our RFI subject field. However, we still have our conditional formatting enabled, so it's still showing us our sign information as well. So anywhere that has sign in it, it'll still show us that information there. All right, so overall, that is the general layout and viewpoint of selecting and working with data. One of the other gotchas, though, is going through each one of these particular fields. We may decide that, hey, we want to go ahead and set our information to, let's say, put a square around that box. So when we go through and produce it, we now see a square around the box. However, if you're familiar with Excel, you'll notice Excel has a little option where you can go ahead and choose one of the elements that don't have a square, and then it'll remove that formatting for you. But as you see, that is not there. So in our case, whatever formatting or style that we add, we'd have to right click and then choose reset style, and that'll take us back to an actual object with no style. So we'll go ahead and choose reset style and then preview, and then our style is gone. So that's one of the gotchas utilizing this particular report designer, is that some things transfer over well, but other things don't. So there is going to be some type of a learning curve as you're going through them. All right, so that being said, let's go ahead and tackle now our district query. So we are done with this. Let's go ahead and close this out. And then we're going to go ahead and save this. All right, and just taking note, this is report 85, train the trainer Q301. So we're going to go ahead and click on the back. Click on our back. We're going to go into our contract, and then we're going to go ahead and choose our contract reports. And then under admin, we're going to scroll down, and then our report that we created is right here. Report 85, train the trainer Q3-01, under construction. So we can double click on the report, and it'll generate our report and it'll run our report. So now our report is getting run, and we have all of our information listed within the report. All right, and then we can go ahead and view our next pages. We can see the total pages, 2 of 13, and work through that. And so from start to finish, that's pretty much how your report's listed. If it's no longer under construction, you can go through and then remove the little checkbox for under construction, so that now people know that they can run the report in its full glory. All right, so let's back up once more. Oh, backed up a little too far. All right, here we go. Okay, so we want to go back to our district library, and that was custom reports, but we also have something called query definitions, as mentioned previously. So in query definitions, we click on that, and we can get all of our query definitions that are listed from this particular page, and then we can add a new query definition. We can go ahead and title our query definition. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and title this particular query definition. It has our particular title already, query D. So we're going to add our additional title, which I already have here. So we go ahead and pull that up and paste it here. All right, so this is going to be our query definition, train the trainer Q3 RFI KTR 1. And then essentially we're going to go ahead and copy this down here as well. And with that, it'll generate our query definition input page, so we can start to input our data elements. So we can go through and talk about this a little bit. Our query name, that can't change. So this is pretty much read-only once it's created. So that is the identifier for your query. The title of the query can change, so you can change the title of your query. We also have our report description, which gives us a short description of our overall report. All right, and then we have our SQL text of our query. So our structured query language text is essentially the keywords that we place in specific order to be able to give us back the data that we're asking for. So I've already prepared a script. So we'll just go through, let's copy that and paste it in. All right, so in this script, we're pretty much just going through, we're doing a select on the date submitted, the RFI no, and the RFI subject to grab our elements from here. And if anyone is wondering where we got those, let's go back really quickly just to make sure that we're clear, not over clicking. Go back to 1660, and then we'll go to our RFI section. And then from here, we can do our control right click, and that brings us our data overlay. So that's where we got the information. We got it from our RFI KTR information here. And then in addition, our example macros shows us our example macros, and then our field names, which are right here. So really quickly, if we go through and let's say we had a notepad available to us, we can pretty much just go through, copy, and then paste the information. It'll give us our field data information, which is date submitted there. We can copy our RFI, paste, and it'll give us our R5 field information. So we pretty much know where the table is coming from, and we know our field name as well. So, and that's how we would track our information the way that I'm currently doing it right now. We have a couple of other ways that you can do this, but I'm just showing you the most straightforward way. Let's go ahead and close that. And let's go back to our query. Click happy again. All right. And we're going to go to our district library, and then we're going to go back down to our query definitions. And then from there, we're going to find our query definition. Actually, I'll just search for it. All right. And our query definition, which is going to be right here. All right. And that's where we pretty much got all of our fields from. The syntax is essentially structured query language syntax. If you're not familiar with structured query language, you can go through, and we do have a couple of recommendations for books that you can get to bring you up to speed on structured query language if you're not fully familiar with it. Or you can talk with our DBAs, and they can actually give you some additional information and tips depending on what you're trying to construct overall to select. In our case, we're just trying to select really quickly a overall brief summary of information from our RFI KTR table. We have our alias, which is here, which we've called R, and R dot, which indicates our field that we're selecting from. We also have some joins, and our joins are joining to our contract table as well as our offices table. And then we actually have our parameterized field, which is our office ID. So another best practice that we follow is parameterization, which allows you to create parameters so that you can insert data to avoid any SQL injection attacks. All right, once all that's situated, we can go ahead and click on OK. And that will essentially create our query for us, but now we actually have to define our parameters. So we're going to go ahead and define our parameters right now. So our parameter that we're going to define is that office ID. And if you don't know the office ID, that's okay. I'll show you another way to create it without the office ID information. But if you know the office name, you should be able to create it that way as well. So in our case, we're going to do that, create office ID. And then for the string type, for the type, we're going to choose string. So the value is going to be string. And the actual value that we're going to enter is going to be the office ID here. Once our query is created and we have our parameters created, we can then click on execute query. That will launch our query. And then at this point, we can choose to enter another office ID if we had one. And then we would click on execute query. We're just going to leave it defaulted with the E120, and then we're going to execute the query. And once the query is executed, it'll pull back all of our information from that particular query. And now you'll notice here, though, that all of the fields are capitalized. Now we'll get to that a little bit later when we jump back into the report designer for the district report. All right, so that gives us our information. We're going to go back. And let me show you one other way to create this particular report. This is our section right here where we actually added the office ID. But what we're going to do is we're going to change that. And instead of doing office ID, we're going to change this to office name. And we're going to choose OK. And obviously, since we're changing it to office name, we're going to have to change our other elements here. So instead of that being office ID, we're going to change that to office name. Going to change that to office name. And then we're going to still leave the type as a string, but we're going to change our default value. And the default value I'm going to use is my test office, which is Baltimore test office. So I'm going to go ahead and input that. I'm going to go ahead and choose execute query. And after we execute our query, it's going to give us basically our header here and our time to input our data. So if we have new data that we want to input for a different office, we can do that here. I'm going to leave it as my test, as my default. I'm going to go ahead and click execute query. And from there, it gives us back our data as well. So utilizing our the FL name for the office information. So once that's all situated and we have all that information set, we're going to go ahead and use that query inside of our new report. So our query is done. Our elements are created. We're going to go ahead and exit out. And now we're going to come back to our custom reports. We're going to create a new custom report. And then we're going to go ahead and choose our new custom report. And I think I'll go ahead and call this custom report here, U5. Do that. Let's see. Q3. And then we're going to call this O2, like so. Okay, same thing. Name is going to stay the same. However, our report type now is going to be district. So instead of choosing contract, we're going to choose district. And then our report menu, I'm just going to leave it administration. But if you want to change it to some other group, you can go ahead and do that here. And then I'm going to type in my for the district. And then, like I said, we're going to talk about this in another training that's upcoming. So we're just going to skip this for right now. And then we can go and select our collections. So we can filter our collections down. And we're going to choose our collection, which is this one right here. All right, once we have our collection, we don't have to choose the contract ID for any district collections. So if we're doing a district report, we can leave our report designer contract ID district blank, because actually our report will be built before we actually launch it. I'm going to keep these the same though. So under construction, I'm going to leave that checked. Show in government mode, I'm going to leave that checked. And then I'm just going to go down and go ahead and click on Telerik Report Designer and launch our Telerik report. As seen on the other screen, it does bring up your query parameter entry, so you can choose to enter your query parameters here. When you execute the query, it's going to build the query and it's going to inject your data into the Telerik report. So we're going to go ahead and build it. I'm going to override our template, which was already existing. And then we're going to wait for it to pop up. It's actually popping up on my other screen. As soon as it loads, I'm going to go ahead and bring it up to the main screen so that you can see. All right, there it is. It is loaded. I'm going to bring it up here. And let's go through and bring that over here. All right, so as you can see, the actual report screen hasn't changed. This was my old report. I'm going to go ahead and close that. No longer need it. And we're just going to work on with our new report now. So our new report, as we can see over here, we now have some new RMS data sources. We have our query, train the trainer, Q3, RFI, KTR1, and then we have our RMS district essentials. So our district essentials give us district specific information. So let's go ahead and change our title. RFI district report. And then essentially, let's go through and let's just drag this over their district name. And let's delete this. And we're going to use this in place of it. Drag it over. You'll notice some hazard signs that are showing up. Hazard signs basically show where your objects are overlapping each other. So if this is overlapping something else, it's going to show a hazard sign. So if you mouse over it, you'll see that it's an overlapping items. And some overlapping items may not appear, such as if you have some type of background color and then it's covering something else, then your underlining items won't appear. So that's why those hazards are there, to let you know, hey, you have some data that might not be shown depending on what type of style you've applied to your object. In any case, we have our information situated. So let's go ahead and test the report. And obviously, by default, we have our elements showing here. I'm going to go back. I already see Got an element here. I'm going to drag this out. And let's go ahead and hit preview. And now our element is dragged out. So we can kind of see everything now. So our T2 Baltimore test district is what we're viewing right now. We're going to go ahead and just do our default things. We're going to change this to a print preview view because we know we're going to have to do that. We're also going to go ahead and select this and select our table. And we're going to change our column to true because we know we're going to have to do that. And then we're going to go ahead and go to our bindings. And then we're going to bind our new data source to our table. And that's the one we're going to choose. And then we're going to choose OK. All right. Now with that, we can go through and start to enter our information. However, one thing that we want to bring up is that you'll notice on the contract report, when we entered our data into the field information here for our contract report, fields.date submitted, you'll notice this is lowercase. If we were to run this, no data shows up. And that's because when we're running a district level report, the actual field information is case sensitive. So if we're running a contract level report, they should be lowercase. And if we're running a district level report, they should be uppercase. So let's go ahead and change that right now. Right click. Oops. Go ahead and choose the expression. And we're going to make this uppercase. All right, so date submitted is uppercase. And the only thing that needs to be uppercase is the field name. As we can see here, the fields equal fields dot is still the same. So this is a keyword that's basically being used to indicate the correct field. But the only thing that needs to be uppercase for district reports is the field itself. I'm going to go ahead and choose OK. And now it's uppercase. We're going to run our report again. And now we can see our data is showing up. All right, let's go ahead and go back to our designer, and then we'll make the rest of the changes to our report. So next on the list, we're going to go ahead and choose our RFI. Let's go ahead and do that. And you can see that's uppercase as well. And then we're going to go ahead and choose our subject. And that's uppercase. Let's go ahead and enter our field information. And let's go ahead and add some styles to this. So we're going to go ahead and left justify. Let's bold those as well. And let's go ahead and bring these over like we did last time. And let's go ahead and format our date like we did last time. Our date's formatted. Go ahead and do preview. And now we have our information being displayed as well. And from there, we can actually go through and do the same thing that we did before. We can go through and add our conditional formatting. Want to create our new rule. And the same thing on this screen, if we're going to do our conditional formatting, we're going to add our field information. And that needs to be uppercase. And like. And let's go ahead and choose our color. And within our color, let's go ahead and choose red. And let's go ahead and preview. And then we see our report is functioning the same as it was before, but just with district values. We can also apply our customized Can also apply our customized substring if we wanted to display the shorter field value, but I think you get the idea for this. So once we're all done with this particular report and we are okay with how the preview looks and everything is looking great, we can go ahead and close this. Hit yes to save it to the database. And now the report is saved to the database. Go ahead and hit back once more. And then we can hit back once more. And all district level reports are going to be in summary reports. So let's go ahead and click summary reports. And then let's go ahead and find our particular report. And then here's our report that we created. Has all of our information. We can enter our query value, so it'll generate our data once more. We can execute that since that's the default value we want. And then it'll run our report again. So we can go through and see our data in the report. All right, and that's pretty much how to generate your custom reports within RMS. We didn't go over any advanced tips and steps. There are tons of things to unpack, and it'll probably do it for a whole couple of days just going through all the elements that are involved. So if you have any custom reports, go ahead and check the asset store first. See if someone's created one, you can utilize theirs. If you still need any assistance with your custom reports, go ahead and put in a ticket, and then we'll definitely work with you to create your particular custom report as well. All right, with that being said, that ends that particular demo. We'll go ahead and open up the floor for any questions if there are any available. Over. All right, copy that. We prefer using Excel format. Copy that, understood. We just pretty much are trying to give you an alternative, so the data is already there. If you can utilize it to help you, great. I mean, if you're able to use Excel, obviously, if that's something working for you, that's going to be up to you to use what's working for you. All right, so no questions. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. All right, so next up is summary reports, and the summary reports, as I mentioned, I just showed those to you, but the summary reports, you can click on summary reports and you'll be taken to the summary reports area. Some of the reports are the custom reports, which were in the production in RMS, which are in production in RMS. Some are created by RMS Center, and some are created by end users that populate these as well. You can double click on the report you want to preview or print, and then depending on the report you want to view, it may take a minute or two to load up, and once it's loaded, it'll go ahead and run. Obviously, if it's a district report, you'll go ahead and enter your data or your filter that you want, and then you can go ahead and run your particular report. All right, the RMS3 Government Mode Schedules tab. Construction projects are notoriously difficult, and they're known for encountering many delays. They involve a lot of moving parts, teams, equipment, and materials. If any discipline needs a well thought out schedule, it's construction project management, obviously. RMS includes a section to manage these various schedules, to control the many phases of construction, and managing your contractor's timeline to minimize those delays. So that particular section, you can select a contract and navigate to the Schedules tab. And once the contract is selected, you'll see the Schedules menu at the top. And when you click on that, it'll go ahead and take you to the Schedules tab. As an overview, many or some of the contractors use third-party tools to manage their schedules. One such tool is Primavera. If you are working with a very small schedule, you may be able to manage it inside of RMS by just doing the manual entry of data selection. However, for the majority of projects, a third-party tool will be a necessity to manage those particular schedules. So the NAS, which is the SDEF, is used interchangeably. And essentially, the NAS activity schedule is basically used to keep track of the actual and scheduled start-finish dates of contract activities and used to process pay requests. You can review your contractor's schedule will continue to be outside. The review of your contractor's schedule will continue to be outside of RMS government mode. However, using the contractor's schedule software is going to be your contractor's job to make sure that all of the necessary data is matching when it gets brought in. So the activity schedule as a whole can be entered manually, or you can import it using the SDEF import option. The COR can switch to a manual schedule for Gantt schedule or NAS schedule, whatever is required by the contract. As a quick note, I think we mentioned this a few times before, but it's always good to mention it again. For the NAS activity schedule, it is critical that the actual start and actual finish activity dates in the NAS schedule are the same dates added to the actual activity start and finish dates entered in the QC daily reports. If the dates aren't the same, RMS won't import the dates, and that's basically that checkbox that we showed underneath the schedules portion. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that real quick, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So essentially, when you go in and you're in contract setup, and you go to submittals and schedules, there's an option right down here. Right now it's set to manually enter schedule start finish dates, but if we choose to enter early and late start finish dates, then it'll change. Let me go into one of my test contracts. I want to mess up that test contract there. Go into one of my other test contracts. All right, so right here we have import early and late start finish dates from contractor's network analysis system. But then we also have this checkbox right here, which requires the contractor to use actual start and finish dates from QC reports on the NAS. So if we check that, that will enforce that the NAS dates that you're bringing in match the daily report dates that are currently entered into the system. So importing the SDEF schedule into RMS through contractor mode is done in the import export module. We actually went over that yesterday. We do have videos on that, so those are available within the training. So if you want to go ahead and download the slides, you will see the training for those as well, so you can review those. All right, the manual activity schedule, if you're going to choose to manually enter, we have a screenshot here of manually entering the activity schedule, which is on the left side of the screen. With a manual schedule, the contractor will manually enter their pay activities under Finances Pay Activities submodule, and then enter the schedule start and finish dates under the Schedules activity schedule, and then enter the actual start and finish dates in the QC daily reports. You can also use the blue tiles along the top of the data grid, which can help you quickly navigate to the particular activities, either all activities not started, in progress, not finished, or finished. So that'll help you to navigate really quickly over those. So let me just bring that up really quick here. All right, so we're talking about right here, if we go into scheduled, if we go into activity schedule, I actually don't have any activity schedule on this calendar, on this one. Let me go to one that actually has some activities. Let's go to this one. And let's go to schedules, activity schedule, and then right here, right now we've got our elements set up here to import the actual schedule. And then our other sample, which is here, this one's set up to manually enter the dates. And then we can see we can manually enter our dates here as well. And then these are actual, so these are entered in the QA, QC daily report area. And then these are manually entered, which are our scheduled dates. We also have our milestone schedules as well. The milestone schedule is simply a timeline that uses milestones to divide a project schedule into its major phases. Due to its simplicity, it's used when project managers or sponsors need to share an overview of the overall project schedule with their stakeholders or team members without going over every single detail. The milestones provide a way to more accurately estimate the time it will take to complete the overall project by marking important dates and events, making them essential for precise project planning and scheduling with the overall plan of the job. So because of their versatility, they're an important element of project documents such as the project schedule and project plan. So milestone like tasks can be linked. That is when the phase of one milestone cannot begin until the completion of the phase before it. And that way you're not blocking your team members from having them wait, or by not allowing them to proceed when they should. So essentially the milestone schedule was taken out of the administration module and moved to the schedules module so that all of the scheduling tasks can be found a little bit easier. You can view milestones by clicking any one of the blue tiles in the header portion of the milestone schedule submodule, or you can group by any of the columns in the data grid. All right, so essentially what we can go ahead and do, now I can see you. I'm looking over to a different chat too. So, all right, so what we're gonna go ahead and do is bring up RMS. And then we basically have our milestone schedule here. And within our milestone schedule, we have all of our milestone schedules that are linked here that we can see in the overall job. We have our groupings of events, and we can choose which groupings to display, or we can show all of our events as well. If we choose a particular grouping and we double click to enter that particular grouping, we can then see our milestone event overall. And then we can see if it's based, schedule event is based on some other milestone event, or if it's a manually entered event. We also have a date time that's situated to it as well that can be connected to it. All right, the project schedule, being a management tool and a control tool, may be applied to many aspects of work by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Project schedules can be utilized by management for in-house analysis, such as engineering and design and life cycle project management. An example is in forecasting annual office budgets by analyzing projected placement from early finish and late finish source of costs, which have been assigned to those particular activities. So in the planning phase, schedule analysis can be used to set construction durations prior to advertisement, or it may be used in running scenarios for acquisition selection as well. One of the other options that we have that is also available is the S-curve, and the S-curve refers to a chart that is used to describe, visualize, and predict the performance of a project or business over time. So more specifically, it is a logistical curve, and it basically allows you to plot the progress of a variable by relating it to another variable over time. And RMS gives you the ability to do that as well. So as we're taking a look here, we can see that RMS has several different tabs available as well. The first is the placement curve tab that's available to us. Next is the monthly placement tab, is where you can compare actual placement with scheduled placement. And then we have the actual versus projected placement tab, which allows you to set up projected schedule placement. You can copy and basically schedule placement to projected schedule placement, or just manually add the percentages overall. We also have our last tab, which is our actual versus baseline tab, and that allows you to set up original projected placement and mid-year projected placement as well. So our next schedule is our feature schedule, and we basically have definable features of work is any task which is separate and distinct from other tasks. It has a separate control requirement or is identified by different trades or disciplines as well. The definable features of work are identified in the contractor's QC plan, and the contractor will perform control activities for each definable feature of work, i.e. preparatory, initial, follow-up inspections, TC tests, etc. So RMS calculates the start date and finish date for each definable feature of work by finding the first activity start date and last activity finish date linked to that definable feature of work as well. The preparatory inspection and initial inspection schedule and actual dates are manually entered by the contractor here on this screen and lets the QA know of any upcoming preparatory or initial inspection meetings that they must attend or they must essentially follow up with. This is all rolled up into the feature schedule, so it makes it an excellent schedule for monitoring the progress, the overall tracking within the contract as well. All right, we've reached the end of the schedules module. So if there's any questions, you can go ahead and submit those now. All right, I don't see any questions. All right, let's move on to the next section. The next section we're going to tackle is the closeout section. So a contract closeout occurs when a contract has met all the terms of a contract and all administrative actions have been completed. Any disputes are settled and any final payments have been made. So this includes those administrative actions that are contractually required, such as proper security, any patents that needs to be transferred, any royalties, any timely and proper contract closeouts, which will include ensuring that all invoices are paid, reduces any of the burden from the tasks. It mitigates risks to losing funds, so no funds are lost. Deobligates any remaining funds as well as reduces the number of open contract files needing management. So essentially, you can go through and start to take a look at the Closeout tab for all of these elements. The first screen that we're going to take a look at is going to be the real property. Once we go to the Closeout tab, we'll see all the listings of the closeouts. We have real property, transfer, requisition, DD 1149, CPAR evaluation, and then our warranty inspection as well. When we're taking a look at real property, for MILCON constructions or military construction contracts, real property is required to be documented by the use of the DD form 1354. This form is used to transfer a facility or part of a facility to the using service prior to or on partial or complete occupancy. So the contractor can now create the real property items and then submit them for government acceptance. So in essence, the government can go through and review those and then accept or reject. This form also will basically allow you to add those particular items. We'll go over several of the elements here. The real property consists of land and capital improvements to the land. Real property is anything attached to the land, buildings, parking lots, electrical systems, etc. The contractor can add in real property items on this list as well. And then all contractor added RP, real property items, must be accepted by the COR for use on the DD 1354. And then for each RP item, the COR needs to determine if the real property will be included in the DDC, the final DD 1354 cost calculation as well. So the design services during construction or DDC, any items that are listed there, you'll need to essentially go to the engineer. So whenever an engineering project transitions from final design to bid or construction, a designer's role will shift onto assistance during actual implementation of the design, and that's usually what that checkbox is indicating, the include DDC. All right, before clicking on the box DD form 1354, we want to make sure to fill out all three tabs. So we want to make sure that all three of those tabs are filled out before creating the form DD form 1354. Two of the elements are the same as actual BOD. The first element is placed in service date. That placed in service date on the 1354 is the same as the actual beneficial occupancy date. And then the second one is the transfer document milestone date. And that one's also the same as the beneficial occupancy date as well. The next tab that we take a look at is the deficiencies tab, and essentially the DD form can be with known deficiencies from a QA/QC deficiency listing, and then essentially you'll have to coordinate with your RPAO prior to submission. So the real property accountability officer will maintain the records for pretty much all the buildings, structures, utilities, and land under the control of the commander, regardless of the type of ownership and such. However, that's outside of RMS, so that RPAO coordination will happen outside of RMS. However, you can still track the information from within RMS in the DD Form 1354. As you're going through, you can enter the most up-to-date costs for the planning and design costs, and the S&A and the DDC, and then the equipment costs as well. So your DDC costs can now be added to the DD 1354 form for inclusion into the real property cost. So if you have that DDC checked and you have costs associated with the DDC, you can now add those costs in. You'll still have to coordinate with the budget personnel for these particular values. With the RMS Center, I can't help you adjust any of these values. These are what you'll have to come up with from your budget personnel coordination meetings that you have. Overall, when you're looking at the reports, you can go to the contract reports. The DD Form 1354 report is generated from inside the transfers DD Form 1354 submodule by clicking the DD 1354 icon. That was the initial screen that we showed before. Or you can go to the contract reports and then choose the closeout module, and then you can go through and open the contract and click on those particular reports associated underneath that closeout section for the Form 1354. The next section we want to take a look at is the Requisition DD 1149. That's our transfer property, and that property that changes hands during the construction process as a whole. So examples would include government furnished property, or GFP, the contractor would install or consume during contract performance. It would usually include spare parts and supplies that are furnished by the contractor as part of the contract requirements, but not actually installed. So if it hasn't been installed yet, but it's furnished, then you would notice that here. It could also include equipment or materials that are deleted as part of the contract modification and that were beneficial for the government to retain rather than get some minimum token credit for the deletion as well. So sometimes we do have some items that some people will probably look at being not important, and some of those things are important, so they need to be kept on site for the longevity. So we want to also track those as well. When you open the Requisition DD 1149, you can view the data grid, which will display all the DD 1149s previously entered into the system. The DD Form 1149 is used to document the transfer of property to customer and should include transfers to and from the contractor and Corps of Engineers as well. All right, I'm glad you're connected back. This transfer may take place in more than one stage. So if so, you will do one DD Form 1149 for each of the transfers. So essentially, you're just going to basically split up the transfer forms for each one of those as they segment in stages. I don't know how much you missed. Hopefully you didn't miss that much. So, however, we still have it recorded, so you should be able to go back and check those. All right, next slide. We cannot track what we do not record. So the audit trail is very important. We want to make sure that if you go through and you are filling out information, all of the header information needs to be filled out. Shipping information should be filled out as well. The appropriations, you can click on Transfer Property tab, fill out all that information. Once all that information is filled out, that creates an audit trail where each piece of information that was transferred can be delivered. And the essential way to take a look at this here is audit trails are very important. We need to be able to track this information so that if there's ever an audit or something comes down the pipe and we need to be able to go back and track that information, we can definitely do that. The government is becoming more and more security conscious, so we need to make sure to enter all the data so that it can be tracked and we can recall it. We also have the CPAR Evaluations screen as well, the module. It's basically the contractor performance assessment report. And essentially, the performance evaluations contain both government and contractor comments to provide a balanced view of performance, allowing source selection officers to look beyond the contractor references. So past performance information is relevant information for future source selection purposes regarding a contractor's actions and under previously awarded contracts or orders. So your input will aid in the proper selection of the best candidate for the job. So going into CPARs and making sure that the evaluation process is done thoroughly and effectively is great. Obviously, this data at some point will be entered into PPARs, and essentially PPARs is used to go through and select for any past performance information as well. The CPAR evaluation is separated into 6 different tabs. We have the contractor name and address, the contractor information, miscellaneous information, small business utilization, the ratings, and then the assessor. Just make sure to impart on the government staff that as they're entering this information, the information should be accurate so that it can be recalled at a later time. One of the things to note is that once all the data is imported, you can then export that CPAR information, and then you can head over and then do the re-entering of that particular data at the CPAR site. One thing that comes up a lot is we're asked quite often as to why we don't have an interface with the CPAR site. And just to let you know, we did actually have an interface with the CPAR site, but that particular interface was decommissioned back in May of 2014. And essentially, we have a document on the site that goes over that. So if you want to get more detail, but we did have an actual interface, but that was decommissioned. However, we're waiting to see if they go through and they reinstate that particular interface. And if they do, we'll obviously go through and create another interface. If not, we just have to move forward with what they have. But for right now, we do have that export button available to you, and you can go ahead and choose the export button, which will allow you to take that particular data over to the CPAR site, and then you can enter that data over there as well. So essentially, if you have an account on CPARs, you'll be able to go to CPARs, sign in, and then you can enter that data over in CPARs. All right, our next slide is warranty tracking. So at approximately 4 months and 9 months after transfer, the USA's construction agent and customer will perform joint inspections to identify defects and plan corrective actions. The contractor should be represented at these meetings. So basically, they will be able to attain an understanding of the problems and then any proposed solutions that will mitigate those problems. It's essential that USAs maintain customer support through project transfer and the respective warranty period. As a result, the specific details of the transfer and warranty procedures can be tracked in the RMS warranty facility module. We give you the screens to be able to do that. The warranty items are those deficiencies provided to the field office from the customer up to 12 months after beneficial occupancy, and the field office confirms that the deficiency is indeed a warranty item. So the individual warranty items cannot be added in the warranty tracking submodule. Only the 4-month and 9-month inspections can be added. You can go ahead and click on add and then add warranty title, warranty start date, and the warranty end date as well. You can click on the 4-month inspection required button and start entering warranty items from 4-month warranty inspection. You can also click on the 9-month inspection warranty button, and then you can start entering warranty items from the 9-month inspection as well. Either the government or contractor can add these warranty items. Once a new warranty item is entered on one side, it will show up in real time on the other side as well. So if the government enters it, show up on real time on the contractor enters it, shows up on real time on the government. So prior to the notification system being added, an email will be sent notifying of new warranty items that are added. Now, as a quick note here, if you have a warranty item that is longer than 9 months enter the warranty end date in the provided edit field. So you'll see at the top there, we do have a warranty end date available. So you can choose to enter the warranty item in that particular field as well. All right, and that concludes the closeout section. Are there any questions in the closeout? Over. All right, copy that. I don't see any questions. All right. So how to filter selection views in RMS, tips and tricks to make using and navigating RMS easier. The overall goal is basically to filter the data to allow the end user to find the information faster. If they're able to cull or trim or filter the selections down into a manageable number, the speed at which the user can verify that data will allow them to find that data much faster. So RMS gives you several tools to be able to do that. You can go through and click on the favorites or recent contract, and then the contract will open. That's noted on the contract selection view. You can always add contracts that are worked on the most as on favorite section. You can select the contract stage filter icon and select contracts that are active, construction complete, final payment made, etc. You can use the export button to generate data grid reports in Excel or PDF formats as well. And then you can also use the search box to instantly filter as you type. Looking at the reports section in the reports view, you can click on the report menu button and all of the records in the data grid will be visible, but will be displayed by each group in ascending order. So you can go through and take a look at that. The default sort order is ascending, but the user can change that order to descending as well. We also have some general filtering options on the data grid. You can click on the filter icons, add the detail on the filter. For the row, that's optional. You can go ahead and click add. You can click the filter and apply each filter to the options. And this type of filtering works fine on the data grid. To clear the filter, you'll just go through and click on clear filter, and that'll also clear the filter. We do have a demo available that's within the slide as well, so you're able to select that. I'll go through and show you a quick demo as well. You can also use the search box on the data grid, so you can look at the payroll screen on this screen, and you can see if you want to look at all the draft payrolls, you can start by typing in the search box, draft payrolls. It'll pull up draft payrolls. If you want to see a particular responsibility code, you can type in 003 for responsibility code, and the filtering will bring up the draft payrolls in the data grid. So we'll basically filter the data grid down. As you can see, only the 3 is entered, but it starts to filter it down to the 003 as well. The contractor payroll section has a majority of the date fields, and though you can search on dates, the dates will work singularly for each particular date. But if you want to work on a date grouping, like let's say you want to choose from one date in between another date, so you want to have 2 dates in between, or filter or constrain your dates, you'll have to do that using the filter section as well. So let's go through and let me open up RMS. And let's jump back out to RMS here. So within RMS here, we can start to see our listings. We have our grouping area here, which shows us to drag columns, drag the column headers here. So let's say we want to sort by or group by contract stage. We can drag that up here, and then we'll group it by contract stage, and we can see the contract stage options here as well. They'll tell us all active, construction complete. So if we want to see all active contracts, we group it by all active contracts and show us our active contracts there as well. And then right here, you can see we have a little arrow. It's kind of hard to see, but you can definitely see it. You can see it operating in here. If you click on the arrow, you can make it go ascending or descending. Right now it's ascending, or you can make it descending. click on that arrow and it'll make it go ascending and descending as well. If you want to go ahead and clear out the grouping, you can go ahead and click on the X and it will clear out that particular grouping for you. If you want to search by anything, let's say by a particular contract, I just typed in 1660 and basically my contract came up. If you want to type in a particular value, it'll start to filter by that value. If you know a particular contract title, let's say front, because my contract was riverfront, I only knew it had front in it. I typed in front and it pulled up everything with front inside of it as well. Or Cumberland, go ahead and type. There's a lot of Cumberlands. Okay, that wasn't a good example. But as you can see, it filters by Cumberlands there as well. All right, let's go ahead and jump inside my contract. And let's go ahead and go to QAQC and then daily reports. And let's say that we want to go ahead and constrain our date values here down. We see all of our information here. We have 2019, 2020, 2018. Let's say we want to select our particular dates. So we want is greater than, let's say January the 1st, 2020. And then let's say we want it less than 12. And then filter, and then we can also constrain our dates that way as well. So we can have our betweens located in here. Now, one thing to keep in mind is when you're doing that, you'll notice this is greater than. We can also choose is greater than or equal to, which will include the value. Right now, it's excluding that particular value, 1, but we can actually choose to include it as well. All right, and if we wanted to go ahead and close out of that filter, we can go choose clear filter, and then it'll clear our filter, and then allows us to go through and do another filter overall. You can then group as well up here, and then we can choose our groupings. We can also choose multiple groupings. So in this case, we want to choose our weather grouping. And then let's say we want to choose our status grouping. So we can choose multiple groupings as well. And then we can see our multiple groupings displayed. If we want to go ahead and get rid of those groups, we can go ahead and choose close and then close here as well. Get rid of those. If you want to go ahead and search for a particular date, we'll go ahead and search for that particular date. 1/1 doesn't exist. So let's say we want to search for 5/18/2022. All right. Now my key is not working. Okay. All right. So 5/18. All right. 05/18/2022 is listed right here. And then we have that showing up as well. All right. And that pretty much gives us all of our filtering capabilities and all of our searching capabilities as well. If we're searching on a text box row, that's the only one I didn't mention. We can do true or false, so we can search all the text boxes that are true or all the boxes that are false. And we can clear that, and that's it. Okay, perfect. And all right, And we're at the questions section again, and that was our final section. So if there's no other questions at this point, I'd like to go ahead and turn it back over to our government personnel and have them close out the meeting. Over.
All right, so I'm not hearing anything and not seeing anything either. But I did want to thank everybody for coming out. I know there has been some internet issues back and forth for some people, myself included, but we do have this going to be uploaded. Sorry, really bad grammar there, but we are going to have this uploaded on the YouTube channel here in a few days. So keep an eye out. So in case you did miss anything, you can catch that there. Again, thank you for coming out today. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.